We are here to talk about Phantom of the Opera. Phantom of the
Ooh.
Opera, the longest running Broadway show in all of Broadway history, and just a cult classic in the theater community. And anyway, my name's Sarah Rose. I am the stage manager of our wonderful theater group here. If my panelists could introduce themselves, starting with Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I don't know what all else you need.
Tell us about your who you are, what you do, how you fell in love with theater. It doesn't need to be long.
Okay. I do computer stuff for a consulting company. I fell in love with theater. My mom did costumes for the Nashville Ballet, so I was backstage at the ballet growing up, and I love theater.
Okay, and Max.
Hey, hi, I'm Max. I'm a general theater nerd about town. I have been going to the theater at least once a year since I was about 12 years old. I live in the New York metro area, so I've been very lucky to be able to have access to Broadway and to most of the national touring companies as they come through the Philadelphia area. So I just, whenever I get a chance, I try to take in a live show.
Definitely, yeah. Kurt and Jen.
I'm fine. And
Are you sure?
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's up to you. I'm Jen, and I'm a theater nerd and ballet. Started with ballet when I was really, really young, and then that transitioned to theater in my teens, and started getting into musicals and enjoying watching, not participating, in my teens, and started just falling in love with musicals and then plays, and just kind of grew from there. I have ended up since becoming a cosplayer to do like the costuming side of things, but have not gotten into the theater myself. I leave that.
Hi, I'm Kurt. I have been in love with the theater most of my life. I actually did I have been in the community theater scene for 32 years now, having done my first show when I was 16, so you guys do the math if you want. And I have done over 45 shows now on stage.
Oh wow!
So
Wow.
going for that. Keep on going.
Just as a funny side fact, we actually met in, this is going to take you back a little
Let's
bit.
take us even further.
We met in an AOL chat room called the Store and just started chatting about Broadway, specifically about Phantom.
Specifically about that.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then I moved 600 miles because long distance relationship is difficult.
I've been married 21 plus years.
How about you, Ashley?
I'm Ashley. I am involved in a lot of fandoms. But Phantom was my first fandom, and I'm in the GTA, Greater Toronto area, so I've been going to shows in Toronto and at the Stratford Festival all my life. I'm finally old enough that I was able to buy my mom tickets to Hadestown this year, so I'm finally able to, share back with her what she gave me, and theater has always been a huge part of my life, and especially musicals.
Definitely, yeah. Well, today we're here to talk about Phantom. So why don't we start with when did you guys first see Phantom, and what was your motivation behind seeing it? Was it like because of the press behind it, or the story, or what's going on? Let's start with Max.
Wow. So I first saw Phantom, I think when I was 12 or 13. I saw it for the first time on Broadway at the Majestic. And mostly, so it wasn't really my choice because I was 12. I
10, so I get that.
yeah. So I was a huge Francophile. Around that age, and I was in love with France. I was in love with the art. I was in love with the language, and my older brother's 8th grade class was it his? I ended up going on a field trip with either my mother was a teacher, with either her like French class she decided to chaperone and took me and my brother, or it was like his class. But basically, she knew that I loved France and that I loved theater, and she's like, "Come on, we're going." It was not the very first professional theater show I saw, but it was among the first. And I fell hardcore in love with it. You know, I wish some of my clothes and my accessories from that time still existed, because I'm seeing Kurt and Jen's shirts and I'm feeling nostalgic for I had a glow in the dark Phantom sweatshirt where the mask glowed in the dark, and of course, and I wore it to shreds. And I just fell in love with it, and it sort of coincided with like becoming a teenager and like my goth rebellion, and just I wore all black and I just listened to it on repeat. So it was just kind of this thing that happened to me in a weird way, and then I saw it. I think I've lost count how many times I've actually seen it performed. I want to say it's between 6 and 8 times.
Wow.
Yeah, because I live outside of Philadelphia, so every time the touring company would come through, my mother was also a huge fan of the show, and it didn't take much convincing to say, do you want to go see Phantom? So yeah, we would just go back and see it again and again.
How about you, Ashley?
Well, when I was in grade 2, it opened in Toronto, and my mom went and got the soundtrack, and I fell in love with the soundtrack. And ever since then, I begged to go. And finally, when I was in grade 5, she decided I was old enough. And so I was in grade 5. I saw Colm Wilkinson in Pantages Theatre in Toronto, and I just fell in love with it. I mean, I had my stuffed animals. I was such a little kid. I played out with my stuffed animals, dressed them up, and like played out scenes, and I didn't really understand much of the story, but I just loved the music so much.
Definitely. How about you, Lauren?
I first saw it in early high school. My friend's parents had like family tickets, and one of her siblings couldn't go, and they were like, "Bring a friend." So I got to go. And then the next week I made my parents take me, because I absolutely fell in love with it. And I've seen it multiple times. Every time it's in a city that I'm in and touring, I go see it. Seen it on Broadway, took a bunch of my friends. When we heard it was closing, it's like, we're going to go up. We're going to see a bunch of shows in New York. And also we're going to see Phantom. Just deal with it. So fell in love with the music. Played it all the time.
Definitely. Kurt and Jen.
I first heard the music in 1990. I was a part of a choir that at the state fair in Ohio, and the alumni had come in from the previous year, and in '89 their choir had done a medley of the entire show, and I fell in love with the music from that point on. Got home, bought the soundtrack, listened to the soundtrack, and Phantom had finally come to Cincinnati in the mid 90s. And I went to go see it, and have been not nearly as many times as Max, but I've been about 4 times to see it now. And only once on Broadway in December.
And Jen.
I actually kind of accidentally fell into Phantom. I was in a literature class in early mid junior high, I think, and was introduced to West Side Story and enjoyed the music from West Side Story, and decided I wanted to learn more musicals, and picked up the Phantom soundtrack, and it pretty much just went down the rabbit hole. And finally got to see it a few years later when I was visiting family in Chicago, and then had since seen it in Atlanta twice. And when we did hear it was closing, Kurt, my mother, and I took a trip to New York in December to see it before it closed, actually on Broadway.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
bought all the swag.
And swag.
I love it.
Yeah, no, I still have my original playbill and my original like program that I got when I saw it in 1997. Hey, yes. I was about 10 when I went and saw it for the first time, and let me tell you, like I had never seen anything quite like it. But definitely now, obviously Phantom is considered to be one of the greatest musicals of all time and one that's going to live forever in people's hearts and people's memories. But why do you think it reached cult status? Like, was it the music, cast, the composer? What do you guys think? We'll start with you, Lauren.
I think it's the music, and the fact that it's easy, like not really like little kids, but you can take your teenagers with you when you go see it. You can take your parents, your grandparents, or whatever. It's family friendly ish, not like kid friendly, but family friendly ish, and that makes it easy for everybody to go. And then the music just sticks in your head.
Definitely, yeah. How about you, Ashley?
I think it's the story. It's been adapted again and again and again, and they never got it right. And I think Andrew Lloyd Webber finally got it right, because so many of the previous adaptations changed the ending to make Eric the villain at the very end and didn't give him that redemptive arc. Whereas I think the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical was really the first one that, did that. And I think that just, it spoke to a lot of goth girl hearts, to put it. I can fix them. It gave us that rallying call. So I think that really did a lot for it. And of course the music is great too. So if you just combine the two, you got it.
Yep, you got muted.
Oh, sorry. How about you, Jen?
I have to agree a lot with Ursula in that getting that original story, I think, with that redemptive arc at the end. But I think another thing that I think always struck me about it is hearing how Andrew Lloyd Webber pretty much wrote it for Sarah Brightman, and you can feel that in the music and the lyrics. And I think it just adds to the mystery and the romance and the beauty of the whole story.
Definitely. How about you, Max?
So yeah, I mean it's all of it, and Andrew Lloyd Webber was already, an established, well-known name pretty much by the time we get to Phantom, especially when Phantom crosses over from London to Broadway. But I think we can't, undersell the people being able to identify with the Phantom as becoming part of why it's such a cultural thing. The Phantom is the other. I mean, there's not an othered group in America that can't identify with someone who's had to live literally underground because of a deformity that's not his fault. So you've got this incredibly romantic music, this incredibly soaring melody, this story that is Baroque and French and operatic that hooks you in, and then there's this little nugget of identification that you can find within all of that can in this story that to I think especially a modern audience could feel slightly dated. But when you look at it through that lens, through the lens of the other, you can really I don't think there's anybody who can't find something to identify with.
I completely agree. And Kurt.
Okay. Everybody has good points, and I'm not going to bother reiterating any of them. The only one thing that nobody's mentioned is the dressing. Watching the candles come up out of the lake, watching the chandelier crash, seeing all of the costumes in the masquerade. It is a beauty.
It's
to
a
behold.
spectacle. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
totally. Like,
You put together the story, the songs, and everything else, and then because you can listen to the music on the CD without ever seeing the show and be completely entranced, and then you go see the show and the magic that just appears before your eyes, you can't help but fall for it.
You will never convince me that there is not a lake in the center of the stage on the Majestic Theater, in the Majestic Theater.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere they import a lake from somewhere.
Yes.
You know, that boat moves.
No, and that's just it. I mean, like the staging, and it kind of brings me to our next question, which is the staging of Phantom has always been a fan favorite topic. Okay, like whether it's the original, both of the originals. Okay, whether you're talking about Broadway or on the West End. You talk about the retheming both on the West End and for the touring company. And frankly, Andrew Lloyd Webber has been hinting at it coming back to Broadway already. So do you think the evolution of the set like adds or detracts, or because it's almost like a character in and of itself, in my opinion? So what do you think about the evolution of the sets? We'll start with you, Kurt, since you were talking about the set.
Oh yeah, put the one that's gonna rip. One of the reasons why we had to go see it on Broadway before it left was because the last time we saw it, it was the touring with the new set, and it hurt because there were things that were missing that Masquerade, the dressing of Masquerade, though they had all the costumes, the spectacle of it seemed just a little bit watered down. The wall that rotates around for them to walk around, it was cool to see, but it just left a little bit to be desired.
Yeah.
I am not personally, I am not a fan of the new dressing, but I am old and crotchety and like the things the way that they were. That's my 2 cents. What I have a feeling that they're doing is it has left the Majestic right now, so they can do some renovations on the Majestic because it hasn't been touched for a while.
35 years.
And
little dusty.
They are probably going to bring it back with the cheaper, easier set that they have created for the touring, which is going to hurt me. But that's just me, and I will pass it along before I get all weary-eyed.
How about Max?
Yeah, so I don't disagree with Kurt, but I do.
Opinion.
So yeah, no, like I mean, I think that if you're like us who have seen it more than once, and I saw it with the OG Broadway staging, and I've seen it with the touring staging, and for me, it was genuinely a joy to see how they changed things and still kept everything together, and still got from point A to point B in the way that they needed to. So there was that. And, I remember the first time Phantom came through Philadelphia, they had to remodel the theater that it was going into because it wasn't rigged for the chandelier, and it wasn't rigged for all of the speakers, and it wasn't rigged for everything. So they had to close down that theater for 4 months and renovate it so that they could bring Phantom to the city. So the new staging just makes it more accessible to more theaters, which means more people get to see it. So I can't fault it for that, and I think if you are coming to it the first time, it's just as majestic, it's just as intricate, it still wows you. And if you're like us and you have that kind of nostalgia, yeah, you can go oh, I miss this, or I miss that, I miss the switchbacks, when they're moving into the caverns and instead of coming down the rotating stage. But that's I actually find that enriches my original experience. It's like, yeah, I know something that you don't know. I got to experience something that you never got to experience. So there you go.
Yeah, definitely.
It adds to my theater nerd cred at that point.
How about you, Lauren?
I agree. Like, I like that it's going to be more accessible with the less stuff, but it's, having seen it touring first, it grabbed me. And then when I saw it at the Majestic, it just blows your mind with all of the trapdoors and the boat and it's just amazing. So
Definitely.
When they were showing like the last night, and they showed the chandelier crashes for the last time, even watching like the little blurb on, like, just even with the sound off, I got goosebumps and started crying. So I think it's just going to stick with you, the staging.
Definitely. How about you, Jen?
I mean, we were pretty much on the same page. It was the biggest reason. As soon as we heard it was closing, it was like, I don't care what we have to sell. We're going to see the original. I do very much understand the accessibility of it, and
getting it to more theaters.
Getting it to more people. I do see how, if you haven't seen it before, our third viewing was the first time we saw the new production, and it was my mother, Kurt, myself, and my father when he was still alive, who had never understood our fascination with Phantom for, the last 15, 20 years at that point.
Definitely.
And the three of us were kind of shell-shocked when it was done, because we were like, that wasn't it. And he comes running up like, I get it now. This is the greatest thing ever. And we were just like, hey. So I definitely see the advantage. But it is going to be something that's always going to be I'll always just kind of have a feel for that original. And there's just these little things. I mean, yes, you've got the catwalk, but I mean, even something as simple as having Christine find the dummy of herself in the wedding dress, taking that out. That's just such a big thing for me. I don't know. It just seems there's even little things taken out that just hurt.
Yeah, definitely. And how about you, Ashley?
So I never saw the redo. I have seen like the original, and I saw it on Broadway, and I've seen the touring cast, and it was like, I found that very different, that, like, instead of the candles coming up, they're coming from the side going in, and that was a big difference. But with the closing, my biggest thing that I'm actually really excited for, it opens the door to a revival with completely new costumes, completely new staging, completely new everything. I want to see, I've been a fan of Phantom for over 30 years. I want to see an entirely new outlook of the story I love. And I think that's awesome. I really am excited to see what they do with it, because it does sound like they want to bring it back.
Exactly. And I mean, it's worth saying, one of our members, Sue, she actually works across the street from the Phantom, the Phantom Theater in Majestic. And so she's been watching the load out pretty consistently. And one of the things she has said is that they are preserving most of the set because they hope to be able to use it for future productions. So I think some of that opulence and stuff that we've come to expect from Phantom is going to remain. Okay. I would love to see them almost kind of do a hybrid of the idea that they did with the restaging. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, like the turning stage, that was a really cool effect. At least I found it really cool. A guy I was dating at the time actually talked about putting that together because he did the load in for it, and it was just like it was a really cool idea and set. I think that it definitely came down to it's cheaper. It's a lot cheaper to do. It's not as long of a load in or a load out. But I'll also say that I feel like it is lacking. I'd almost love to see them kind of do that idea like they did with the 25th anniversary, where they they brought the screens into it and stuff like that. If they can't have as many set pieces, they could create atmosphere with those. Now, I've never actually seen it on Broadway. I saw it both times it was touring, when I saw it on stage, and I've seen it several times online because I'm that person. I sit and watch it over and over again. But I will say that when I saw it, and keep in mind, I live in Des Moines, but we have a fairly technically advanced theater, I guess the stage itself. And I remember the candles coming up from the thing. The thing that I was most disappointed at was actually his organ. Yeah, that if I could have them change one thing on that set, it would be that he'd have a real organ and not just this like keyboard thing that like kind of scoots in and scoots out. So how about you guys? What would you guys change if you could? And it could be not just sets, but it could be about the production in general, costumes. What would you guys change? And how about you, Ashley? I know you said you'd like to see them reimagine it.
Yeah, I would like just new costumes. I would like them to find a way to speed up the chandelier coming down. That's the biggest one. I really want to see a reimagined masquerade. I think it's brilliant the way it was done, but I mean, I feel like things have progressed since the 80s that they could probably do a lot more interesting things with that, and I'd really like to see how they would take that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. How about you, Jen? What would you change? You wouldn't change anything? It's completely valid.
Change? What? Yeah.
I get that.
We're having a little bit of a trouble hearing you, Jen. Yeah,
we couldn't hear you.
We couldn't hear you.
Let's get us a little closer to the mic. How's that?
That's better. We can hear him fine.
Because I'm wild.
He's loud. I kind of freaked out when you asked that question because I have no idea. I can't come up with anything. The big thing I wanted to know from it was how they did the whole little trick of him disappearing in the chair at the end and leaving the mask, and I figured it out when we saw it on Broadway because his hand got stuck. I'm good.
Oh yeah. Oh, can we add a horse? I'd like the horse added back in.
I'm just glad they took out the pigeons.
Yeah. How about you, Max?
I would like Raoul to be a little more realistic. And he's such a twat. From like minute one, and I'm just like, do you have a personality that is more than entitled rich boy? That's the only thing I would change. Raoul annoys me from like the minute he appears, and I'm like, you should get strangled. You deserve it. It's fine. Christine can just run away with the Phantom because she doesn't need you and your trifling butt. Yeah, no, it's I understand the purpose that Raoul serves, but yeah, he is always kind of grated on me because he just feels so like arch and kind of he's operatic, but I think it would be great to modernize him.
Definitely. How about you, Lauren?
I agree with what everybody said. I really like new costumes. We can do so much more with lights and things than we could in the 80s, and we could change up the costumes so much, especially in the masquerade sequence. And yeah, it'd be great if the chandelier came down faster and scared more people for the first time.
Didn't they have to slow it down because it scared people?
Yeah, I think that is why they
like the legend goes, and it might be apocryphal at this point, but the legend goes that like in the first previews on the West End, it fell so fast that people literally had heart attacks.
Oh, really?
In the front row because they didn't know it was an effect.
It was.
You know, you got to think about it. Like the first time you've seen it, it's 1987, and you're sitting in this old theater that has old chandeliers. Like the theater, the Academy of Music in Philadelphia, has an old French chandelier hanging from the top of the ceiling. And so if you're not expecting it and suddenly the chandelier comes crashing down in front of you, you might have some ill effects. So that's the legend, is that they slowed it down was because people were fainting, having heart attacks, screaming, running.
The train, the old train movie thing where
exactly.
Picture was the train. Everybody thought it was coming through the picture
through the screen.
I could be misremembering this, but I think that the U.S. production is even slower than the British one.
It is pretty slow.
To slow it down further for insurance.
Yeah, it is pretty slow. That said,
how about you, Kurt?
Everybody's pretty much said exactly the same thing I was thinking. Just, I'm of the, again, old guy, perfection. There are some updates, of course, that need to happen. Just bringing the technology up, which is what I'm pretty sure this is what they're doing for the Majestic, is upgrading all the technology to make sure that it can run smoother. Mm-hmm. I too think Raul's a twat.
I don't think anybody, like, if you,
there are
he's further, if you see Love Never Dies, which I know we're not getting into Love Never Dies, but he's a further twat in Love Never Dies. So.
That doesn't exist. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. Yeah, is that a show? I've never heard of it.
I have thought. Is the best song. But yeah, I basically just updating the special effects, the fireball sequence in the cemetery, just upgrade that, because that is very 80s. Mm-hmm. It was very impressive back then. Now it's like everybody knows about the magic white paper.
Definitely.
Yeah, so just some of the special effects to make it feel even more magical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this comment in particular, I agree with. Though I was talking to another member about Love Never Dies right before then, and the comment says, Love Never Dies works if you look at it as its own thing and not related to Phantom. And in my opinion, like, Phantom is almost like the Star Wars of the theater community. Okay, it's you change one thing, or you criticize it in some way, or say something needs to be changed, and a lot of people just like go, no, it's perfect, leave it alone. So Love Never Dies is almost like the Disney Wars of the Phantom community, in my opinion.
I'll take that.
Or it's just a really poorly written story.
Yeah.
Or it's that.
I like
Sierra,
the story has. I have questions.
Sierra singing that title track, though, chills every time. Like, the Love Never Dies. I'm sorry, I will stick with, I did love that title track. So just we'll get to our another question, but I just want to remind everybody who's watching, we do accept questions, comments, everything else. If you have things to say, please feel free to say them. If you have questions for our panelists, we love to interact with you guys. Now, let's kind of go back to the cast here. So obviously, the Phantom, he's very polarizing, and everybody who's played with him has done a different version of him, at least in my opinion. Like, some of them have been more sympathetic, some of them have been more emotional. Some of them have been like more angry and scary. So who was your favorite Phantom? And we'll start with you, Ashley.
Well, my first Phantom was Colm Wilkinson, but I was very young. I can't remember how he characterized it, but I love his voice. What I remember was when I saw it on Broadway with Hugh Pinero, and I really enjoyed him. Around that time, I was really big into Phantom fans online, and a lot of illicit videos were going around. And one was Brad Little was the favorite at the time. He was tall, he had the hands. He was a bit aggressive, but also had some good nuances. And he was a favorite as well. But Brad Little and Hugh Panaro have been my favorites.
Definitely. How about you, Lauren?
I have to go with Michael Crawford because his voice is in my head because I've listened to the soundtrack so many times. But then again, I've also watched the 25th anniversary so many times that when I see him, it's screaming.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. How about you, Jen? What's your favorite one?
I am literally with Lauren. We obviously before we were even.
She can answer for both of us.
Okay, sounds good. Well, you can add on there too, Kurt.
Yeah, I say, what was it at the dinner table like? About a month ago, between my mother lives with us now, and we got to talking about who the best Phantom was, and we were just all kind of going back and forth, and we literally just pulled up Music of the Night from Michael Crawford and then Music of the Night from Ramin, and we were just going back and forth, and it was like it's Sophie's choice. I can't.
Michael Crawford is special for me because I remember him from Hello, Dolly.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you remember how well he sang, he sang in Hello, Dolly. Hearing the change from that going into Phantom was like, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the first one. You listen to that soundtrack over and over, especially since it was in the 90s. And, for 5 years, it was nothing but that.
That voice.
Like Lauren, that is who Phantom is.
Mm-hmm.
But Ramin has so much. They both have the nuances of the sympathetic, I'm not the bad guy here. I'm angry, but I'm not the bad guy. Raul is a dick, and you need to kill him. And they have the anger in them, but it is not who the character is. And it plays off so well in their voices as they're singing. You can't really you can differentiate between the two, but they each have something that brings them to the top. They are both number one in my book.
I will point out, though, that Michael was not the first version of Phantom we heard. That was Steve Harley.
Crawford was my first. How's that?
All the electric guitar.
Not on the
Sorry.
soundtrack, but I have listened
World
to
at
it a
large.
bazillion thousand times.
Yeah, let's not forget Mary Head.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mary Head is in there. He did some of the demos.
How about you, Max? What's your favorite?
Yeah, so it's the same for me. Like Michael Crawford is my OG, my one and only, my main man. I was just obsessed with his voice from the moment I heard it. I bought like tapes. He would do like his own albums, and I would just like, yes, give me more of this voice. And I never saw him perform it, but the photographs and video clips and things of him, over the years that would come out, just the elegance that he brought to it. I mean, I had read, a coffee table book or a magazine article. I read everything I could get my hands on about the production, and him talking about how his boots are laced up to the thigh so that he doesn't ruin the line of the costume with anything. It doesn't break, and just that level of attention to the presence and the way in which the Phantom carries himself, absolutely enthralling. His voice, incredible. I think Ramin is sexy. He the Phantom has to be alluring. or else it doesn't
He
work.
is literally it on a stick. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just
No, it's true. It's absolutely true. And if the Phantom isn't compelling and isn't alluring, it doesn't work. If he's just angry at the world and not refined and elegant and wanting the things that he cannot have, then it doesn't work as a story. You know, there's a great book, and I'm looking for it on my shelf. I know it must be here somewhere. It's called Eric. Actually, it's called Phantom, and it's Susan Kay. And you can see, this is my copy of it. You can see I read it absolutely to death. Susan Kay has this amazing portrayal of Eric as the Phantom, as being incredibly cultured and incredibly. He's a prodigy. He's the smart and curious and willing to pick up all of these different things, but because of his otherness, he can't access society, especially in the late 1800s. So, you know, if he's not those things, it doesn't work. And I think that's something that I mean, Crawford absolutely brought that, but as you know, when you're talking about 25 years later, you know, Ramin brings like this like oomph.
Yeah. And I actually think like going back to that originally recorded single version, and it was like, I mean, it was a rock version of the title track Phantom of the Opera. That is why it works well. Now keep in mind it's from the 80s, so maybe it doesn't work so much for rock and roll now, but at the time it worked really well because the Phantom, especially in this production, maybe not so much in the history of the book and the story and stuff like that, Phantom is a very sexy, you're supposed to sympathize with him, you're supposed to almost want him to win, so and I think some of that comes back also to like Andrew Lloyd Webber you brought up. He literally wrote it for his wife at the time, and his muse Sarah Brightman, and it was like they're almost their own Phantom and Christine story, and I think that was him like bringing their relationship into the Phantom story. And I will just say, if it's not obvious already, I am saying Raheem. So yeah, no, definitely. And he for the emotional part of it, and I mean, he plays it very, very emotionally, like right on his sleeve. You can totally feel him, and I think that works really well. Especially for the 25th anniversary version of it, they wanted to capture that essence, and that's why they've brought him back for the new Italian production. I know a lot of people were hoping after the current Phantom, and I cannot remember his name, and I am sorry, the guy who was,
I think,
yeah, that sounds right. The person who was originally playing Phantom got sick, got a viral infection in his vocal cords. So obviously he wasn't going to be able to sing for the last week. And a lot of people wondered if they were going to bring Raheem back for that. He can't. I mean, funny girl aside, he wouldn't be able to do that with him literally in rehearsals for the Italian production. But he literally is my favorite Phantom. So one of the things I wanted to touch on, which I have a feeling just from talking on with you all, I think I know what this question is gonna get, but let's talk about the movie.
What movie? There was no movie.
Do we have to?
Yes, we need to.
No,
I actually got this question on Instagram to specifically talk about the movie.
Okay.
So some people love it, some people hate it. Did we need it? What are your thoughts on the movie version? And Lauren, let's start with you.
I liked that it existed in 2004 because in 2004 I needed it. I do not like who they cast. They probably should have hired people who could sing. That would have helped in a musical. But I do not need it now. I have the 25th edition. special concert presentation thing on DVD, and I can watch that and just let the other things sit on my shelf and never exist again.
Okay. How about you, Max?
Yeah, I mean, I was really excited that they made a movie and that they like tried to be faithful to the show. They tried really hard. Most of the stuff that needed to be in there was in there. I don't understand Gerard Butler. Never will. When there are so many,
Sexy. That's why they cast him.
he's sexy, yeah, but there's like a lot of sexy Hollywood stars that can sing.
Yeah.
That were the right age and older, that they didn't need. I mean, he was kind of at like the peak of his popularity right at that moment. But like, no. So, again, for sheer accessibility, it was awesome for me as a theater fan to be able to go, look, here's this thing that I love.
Mhm.
But after I saw it, I went, no, don't have that be your first exposure to it. Please love it first, and then come see the movie with me, and we can talk about how crazy it is. We all be happy about a horse in the tunnels. Yeah, we can be happy about that. That's what movies will do. You can't do the things you can do in a movie that you can't do on stage. So yeah, did we need it? I don't know if we needed it then. With the success of Hamilton and the way that we've as a culture have had to pivot because of the pandemic and having to have and really thinking about having accessibility to things from your home, I'd love to see them do it again. I'd love to see, a brand new version of it. I would love to see, let's get everybody on a set and record it and, do it like Hamilton and have it put it on a streaming service for now and all time. So you can, for something like this that's so culturally important that you can preserve it, and have something, because shows are expensive and not everybody who wants to see them gets a chance. So if you have, an honest to God and a non-bootlegged version that has production value that you can show people, and have them experience and broaden their experiences that way, there's value in that. So in that sense, yeah, the movie has value. For dyed-in-the-wool hardcore fans, we're always going to cringe a little bit at it.
Definitely. How about you, Kurt?
Once again, Chris and I are a little bit at differences. Agree and disagree at the same time. Having been one who has grown up on all of the musical movies throughout the late 70s, early 80s, going back and watching some of the ones from the 60s, the production value of musicals for movies versus stage is always at odds with each other. Mm-hmm. If you watch the movie versions of musicals, you're always going to have that this is not the stage show in the back of your head. Yes, little cringy in places. I honestly was not as bothered by Butler. Yeah, not the best voices, but he had the passion and the emotion that the Phantom needed. And I think that carries him further. If only he could have had the voice to bring him over the edge. I don't hate it. I'm not in love with it. But compared to like Man of La Mancha movie version, stuff like that, it is step above. And as we get further along, I think they should come back and revisit it again with a different version.
Definitely. How about you, Ashley?
I was in the height of my Phantom fandom when this was coming out. So I know so much about the movie, and I hate it so much.
I did not see that coming. I did not see her going there.
Really didn't either.
I tried to like it. I saw it in theater 4 times. I was like trying to convince myself it was good, but now I watch it again and I'm just like, why? He made so many mistakes in so many places. Joel Schumacher needs to be hung. I don't know why
they changed so many lyrics unnecessarily.
Andrew Lloyd Webber, like, he liked him from The Lost Boys, but it's like it's not the 80s anymore. It's not. Stop trying to make it the 80s. And like they dubbed Carlotta. Why couldn't they? Like, if they were willing, like. I feel like Andrew Lloyd Webber just hangs around with musical theater people that he thought that everyone could sing, but they can't. He just said, "Oh yeah, just get some singing lessons. You'll be fine." It's like, no, this is supposed to be the age of music. He's the one character that has to sing good. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant. It upsets me. At the time, I was so excited for it because obviously it's my fandom. I want to be able to share it with people, and that was how you share it with people. It was like, hey, I love this thing. Here's a movie of it. At least now we have the anniversary. I can share that, and that's a very good representation. I would love a new movie, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon because, I'm upset. Sorry, that was a rant. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. And how about you, Jen?
Like, moving back, I was honestly coming up to the movie kind of angry that we were getting the movie because I really did not have a lot of faith. As I think we were talking about earlier, I think Max was saying the otherness of the Phantom, and that was I was born with birth defects, and when I was a teenager absorbing this, identifying with the Phantom was such a big thing. So that emotional piece of the Phantom was what I needed. And personally, I got that from Butler and didn't expect it. No, the singing, but I got what I needed emotionally to validate enough until we got the 25th, and now I don't need the movie anymore.
For me,
quick question.
Yeah.
Who sang worse, Gerard Butler in Phantom or Russell Crowe in Les Mis?
At least Russell Crowe wasn't the titular character.
Yeah. No. Russell Crowe singing Stars is an abomination. That should never have happened.
Well, that's the biggest thing that I have to say about Gerard. He was beautiful.
I mean, bless him, he tried.
He really did. I think, and I know that this is gonna abhor everybody. They would have been better off having him lip sync. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to for me and Gerard. But I've always joked that what's his name? Zorro.
Antonio Banderas
would have been a better choice.
He can sing.
And we've seen him do Phantom. But no, for me, it came out, I was a senior in high school. Okay. And I had one friend I could talk about Phantom with. And she was like in that like almost over me kind of fan, like she was in love with the Phantom kind of a thing, and I wasn't quite there. So when the movie came out, it actually allowed theater to be kind of cool again for a while, and I remember that was like a big part of my senior year was the Phantom movie. And I will say, I think one thing they did do really well is they brought that emotion, and the costumes were also very beautiful. I thought they did a very good job of updating the costumes away from like the 80s, 90s style that that the show has. And so I think that it definitely has worth. It's something that if I'm trying to introduce somebody to Phantom of the Opera, I'm probably going to show them that versus the 25th anniversary, because I just think that somebody who's never seen theater before, they're probably going to be more likely to say, "Oh, well, this is really cool. Well, you think that's cool. Now let's watch the 25th anniversary."
I will say that the one thing I think the movie does better than the stage production is the Don Juan triumphant scenes, because you can intercut and you can see, you know, the reaction that Christine is having, like the acting that within the show that is going on the stage. And I think, you know, like I'm a little bit, I think I'm probably closer to Kurt's age. You know, I was out of college when the movie came out, and it was like, oh, that's what's really going on in that scene. Okay, you know, because like the stage show is it's not risque in any way. You know, it's plays down the seduction, and it plays down, you know, that she's there solely for him in that way. And then the movie is like, okay, well, we have a rating, and we can spin this up a little bit more and make it really like we're clear on what's happening. So I think that may be the one thing that the movie, you know, aside from the horse in the tunnel, because that's valid. That's one thing that I can say, like the movie captures, that I think the stage production is a little like, you know, meh, maybe you, like, if you're an adult, you probably understand what's going on. But if you're on the younger side, you know, at least when I was 13 in the early 90s and seeing it, I was like, what's happening?
Catch you with his magical lasso went right over me when I was a kid. I'm gonna be honest. Like
that is one of the good things about the movie versions of the musicals, even though none of them really capture the full essence of the magic of a show. Not a single musical movie does.
Right.
But it gets you in the middle of it. For those of us who spent most of our time sitting all the way in the back nosebleed sections, where you just get to see these little tiny people running around on stage, being able to be that close to the action, to see the interactions, is in its own way a magical experience.
Definitely.
However, if you can be near the orchestra looking up at them, that was very magical.
Definitely. Okay, so we're almost on time. If anybody has any questions for our panelists, please leave them in the comments. But my final question for the panelists is, and I think I know some of your answers here. The most overrated character, and we'll also throw the most overrated song into there. And Max, we're gonna start with you.
Oh no, I was afraid you were gonna start with me. I think, you know, you probably know, I think Raoul is the most overrated character.
Almost everybody does.
Sorry, Raoul. I mean, you're showing up at Christine's door with roses you took from... Well, come on. But I think, and Kurt, I'm really sorry about my answer to this, but I think the most overrated song is Masquerade. I think that it vamps so many times. And you're just like, where, you know, it's someone who has wanted to learn the lyrics, you know, and I've learned the lyrics simply by repetition at this point, and that's how I learn most things, is by repetition. And I still get lost in the middle, like, what verse am I singing? Where am I? So those are my answers. Raoul and Masquerade.
Definitely. How about you, Lauren?
Definitely Raoul, because he's a twat.
I'm gonna get ribbons for Dragon Con that say Raoul is a twat, and I'm just gonna give them out.
And you need to give out at some stuff that might be happening. There's a couple things that might be happening with Phantom at the con, but anyway, go ahead. Okay. Lauren.
I, on the other hand, like Masquerade because I can't really sing, and I definitely can't hit high notes, and I can sing Masquerade. So the songs that always annoy me are all of the Christine's solos, or when she goes up high and does all the arias, and I can't do that, and so I don't like them because I can't sing along, or I can only sing along in my car when it's just me.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Ashley?
I don't think there is an overrated character. I think they all are doing what they're supposed to do. I don't think Raoul was supposed to be likable. And I don't think the Phantom's overrated. I think he's perfectly rated. For overrated song, Music of the Night, I think it's just too long. I just get bored. It just goes on too long. Everyone loves it, and it's like, it's too long. Yeah.
How about you, Kurt and Jen? You guys can choose who goes first.
I think our answer's the same, isn't it?
No, I think the song is different.
Oh, okay.
Because along with everybody who said that somebody was overrated, Ralph, and everybody has officially said Ralph LaPlante. Okay. Mine is Prima Donna.
That's a good answer.
I appreciate the song, but I hate the song. And I mean, it definitely highlights Carlotta's character, but I just think it's overdone a lot. It's the one I always skip because I just can't take it.
How about you, Jen?
No, obviously, Raoul. Song, All I Ask of You.
You stole mine.
The Christine and Raoul version. The reprises later have more emotion to them, but the song between them and people using it for weddings and that.
I'm gonna actually probably disagree with all of you. I am disagreeing with all of you on the character. I'm actually gonna say Meg.
She's my second choice.
She feels like this filler, like she's supposed to be like the best friend character, right? And I guess the movie, they made her a little bit more character, but like she just seems to be like, well, we need another female like person, young person to stick in there, and so I feel like she's added in there. I don't think she's necessarily
underdeveloped.
Context. Yeah, and she's underdeveloped for sure. And I feel like she's overrated. I have a lot of friends who love her, and that's fine. I love her design, but I just feel like she's overrated to a lot of people. And for me, All I Ask of You, totally there with, and I think it comes down to where I don't really believe Raoul and Christine's like love story. You guys don't know each other anymore. How many years has it been since you've known each other? And so that's a big reason why I don't believe that song, and so I think it's overrated. It's beautiful, but yeah.
I don't like Raoul's that are older because it doesn't come across as authentic. When it's two younger ones, then it makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
So, well, that brings us up on time. So before I have you guys sign off, I'm just gonna make a couple of announcements here. One of the things in the chat, I promised everybody that I was going to reveal what the second sing-along for Alt History is this year. And yes, we're involved in both of them. I'm currently working with them. And the second sing-along is going to be... Hold on. Trying to remember the name of it. ADHD moment. Miranda's
In the Heights?
In the Heights. There we go. Oh, yes.
I was like, it's the only other Miranda show. So.
Yes. Sorry. I am terrible with titles and names, so I apologize in advance. Yes. In the Heights is going to be the second sing-along. And it, of course, everything's pending final approval schedules. Nothing's final at Dragon Con until it's over. But yes, that is the one we are actively working towards. We are, as I hinted at, we are working on some more theater content, so stay tuned. We're going to have some announcements. But as far as what you can expect from the group, we are going to be doing the importance of theater and performance in education. Is going to be our next panel topic. We are currently looking for panelists for that. That's probably going to be in the second week of May. I had some delays getting stuff done, so I haven't actually reached out to anybody. But if you're interested in being on that panel, just reach out to me. And we can talk about it. We are also going to be doing part 2 of our Theater is Not Just Musicals panel. John Armstrong is going to hopefully be able to make it this time. He was our panelist from the last one that had to reschedule. But yeah, in the meantime, we just ask you like, subscribe, all of our videos on YouTube. I do plan on hopefully trying to upload this video onto YouTube later. And check out our previous panels because there's a lot of cool content there, and we're just getting started. Anyway, where can we find you guys, Lauren?
I don't. I have Facebook, but that's basically it for socials.
Okay. How about you, Max?
You can find me at DragonCon in the Daily Dragon office. I volunteer with the Daily Dragon, so I'm usually out and about, running around reporting and going to panels and doing all of the things for the Daily Dragon at DragonCon. You can also find me on my blog at inmysize.org, where I talk where fandom and fatness intersect. It's a little defunct at the moment. Don't be discouraged. It will get revitalized as soon as I have enough brain to do so. I'm also on Twitter at inmysize. So that's where you can find me.
How about you, Kurt and Jen?
Good.
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at the Wonder Tab. And next big, as said early, we're big into cosplay. So our next big event is ICCC in Nashville, Tennessee, which not Broadway related, completely Star Wars. Super antithesis.
No, we have no fandom of Mandalorian or anything.
Star Trek forever.
What? I didn't say that. Leia's somewhere.
You can have them both.
You can have them both. I have them both.
You can follow me on Instagram at Caleb_Doom. Again, note the Star Wars. And hopefully I am starting to just get involved in a local group, the Atlanta Radio Theater. That
yeah, Bill's group. Yes.
That does old time radio theater type stuff. I've just applied and I've gotten all of the come join us emails. So starting next week, I should be getting involved with them a lot.
Great. How about you, Ashley?
I'm actually really involved in the Song of Ice and Fire fandom. So you can find me at a podcast of Ice and Fire. Ice and Fire Con is this next weekend. On Twitter, I am Ashley Clegane, which is not surprising if you know who Sandra Clegane is. Makes sense. And that's where I am mostly.
Okay, definitely. Well, we thank you all for being with us. We apologize about the technical issues at the beginning, and we will see you guys again soon. So you all have a wonderful night. And thank you. Bye-bye.
My Phantom shirt. Had to sneak that in.